Hello and welcome to Devil's Advocate. 1 month after the change in leadership in the Bharatiya Janata Party, what does it mean for India's principal opposition party? That's the key question that I shall put today to the leader of the opposition, the man they consider the founder of the modern BJP, L K Advani. Mr. Advani, there's a widespread perception that you as leader of the opposition and Rajnath Singh, your successor as president of the party, are saying different things or emphasizing them very differently. Do you two stand for different visions of the BJP?
I don't think any of the statements made by the two of us these days should create any such impression.
I'll come to the facts in a moment, but are you telling me that your outlook, your ideology, your attitude are broadly the same?
Yes, they are the same.
Well, in that case, let's come to the facts of the matter. To start with, the two of you say very different things about Hindutva. After the Goa Chintan Baitak in 2004, you said to me, the word Hindutva was not stressed. Indianness was stressed, nationalism was stressed. And it was emphasized that when we talk of Hindutva, we do not mean anything other than Bharatiyata or Indianness. And now compare that with what Rajnath Singh said on the 20th to your party's National Council. He says, Hindutva is not only an icon of Indian culture and tradition, but also the source of economic resourcefulness, strength and intelligence. Hindutva, above everything, is the symbol of the national way of life. Completely different statements.
You have recalled a statement of mine after Goa. And there too I have said that Hindutva is synonymous with Bharatiyata or Indianness. And this is a statement that is not Advani's. That is of a BJP ideologue, Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay, of the 50s and 60s, with which no one can differ, certainly not the president of the BJP.
Except that Rajnath Singh stressed Hindutva. You said at the Chintan Baitak, and remember it was a Chintan Baitak, that Hindutva wasn't stressed. You said Hindutva was Indianness and Bharatiyata. He hasn't even used those words.
I don't think these things, the word stressing or emphasizing in a particular context may be important, but only because these days there are statements made, so and so drifted away from Hindutva, drifted away from ideology. Therefore, perhaps he may have felt the need of stressing that.
Except that it's not just over Hindutva that you and Mr. Rajnath Singh say different things. Even on the issue of ideology and the role it plays in the Bharatiya Janata Party, you as leader of the opposition, Rajnath Singh as party president are saying different things. In March 2004, I quote to you what you said, a country as vast and pluralistic as India cannot be ruled by an ideological party such as the Jan Sangh. Otherwise, you added, don't think in terms of ruling the country and exist just as an organization and propagate ideology. What does Rajnath Singh say in January 2006? He says, from the time we started our political journey in the Jan Sangh, we have been guided by a particular ideology and we remain committed to it. Once again, you de-emphasize ideology, he emphasizes it. You make a split from the Jan Sangh, he unites with it.
No, I still think that if he were to elaborate anything, he would say exactly what I have said. How he
that
said
would be
it
wishful thinking on your part.
No, it's not wishful thinking.
He's created the perception in the press that he and you speak different things on critical core subjects.
Karan, may I tell you that my own development in respect of this matter grew at a time when we were associated with Jayaprakash Narayan.
Quite right. But Mr. Rajnath Singh hasn't developed as you've developed. You've changed and moved on. He's still where he was.
He will also be where I am. There's no problem.
Perhaps one day in the future, but not now.
No, even now. Even now, if he were to elaborate, he would say the same thing.
All right. Let's test then on details, because in fact, when you come to details, the divergence between the two of you becomes yet more stark and obvious. On March the 25th, 2004, you said that the time wasn't right to repeal Article 370. A week later, your party's vision statement, which, mark you, was a vision statement for 20 years, not one election, didn't mention the abrogation of Article 370 at all. Yet this January, addressing the National Council as party president, Rajnath Singh called on every party in the country to reconsider its commitment to maintaining 370. Once again, you're saying completely different things.
No, you see, here also he realizes that repealing Article 370 may not be possible, and therefore he appeals to all other parties, particularly those who are likely to be our partners in the NDA, to reconsider their approach to Article 370.
No.
As for example,
it came across to everyone as if he was telling the parties, reconsider your commitment to maintaining it, not reconsider your commitment to repealing it.
Karan, I would, just as this 370 issue has come, similarly I would say that uniform civil code is desirable. But we don't stress it today.
Ah, I'm glad you brought up Uniform Civil Code. I was going to come to that as my second detailed example.
No, I would think that both 370 as well as the article, as well as the Uniform Civil Code are in a category which are desirable things.
But once again, what you said when you were party president about the Uniform Civil Code and what Rajnath Singh says today are not just subtly different, they are significantly different. Let me explain. In the vision statement of 2004, you clearly said that a social and political consensus has to be evolved before the enactment of the Uniform Civil Code. In January this year, speaking to the National Council, Rajnath Singh forgot all about the need for a social consensus. He only talked about a political consensus. That's a significant shift.
I would think that in both cases he has talked about consensus.
No, he hasn't. I've been through his speech as published on the website of the BJP. There's not a hint of social consensus. He only talks about political consensus.
Why differentiate between social consensus and political consensus? After
Your
all,
vision statement does. Your vision statement does.
Article 370 apart, but so far as Uniform Civil Code is concerned, even the Constitution requires that we should have a uniform.
No doubt, but I am talking about...
And even pronouncements by the Supreme Court have repeatedly said, why are you negligent towards this directive principle?
Undoubtedly true, Mr. Advani, but I'm talking about something else. I'm talking about the difference in approach to the subject of Uniform Civil Code, and before that, to the abrogation of Article 370 between you and your successor.
Maybe in a certain context he may have said it, and maybe he will also come to the same point.
He needs to evolve as you've evolved. That's what you're saying with a big smile on your face.
I am not claiming to be on a different level of evolution, though it is greater experience to some extent.
But you see, Mr. Advani, it's not simply on issues of Hindutva and ideology. It's not simply on issues of Article 370 and Uniform Civil Code that you and your successor differ. Even in terms of the attitude of the party and its relationship to the RSS, the two of you say significantly different things. In your famous speech in Chennai in September, you said, and I quote simply to remind the audience, lately an impression has gained ground that no political or organizational decision can be taken without the consent of RSS functionaries. This perception will do no good to the party or to the RSS. Both the RSS and the BJP must consciously exert to dispel this impression. What does Rajnath Singh say in interviews in January 2006? To PTI on the 6th, he says, whenever there is confusion, doubt or problem, I will not hesitate to consult the RSS. 2 days later, to the Indian Express, we gain from the RSS's experience and advice. You want independence and separation, he wants consultation.
Now, paraphrasing my statement as I want independence is not correct. I said the impression has to be dispelled.
And it's the impression primary and important that it is.
It is.
He's creating that impression. He's reinforcing that impression, isn't he? He's reinforcing it when he says, whenever there is confusion, doubt or problem, I will not hesitate to consult the RSS. That's the impression you want to dispel.
He will consult the RSS, not the RSS will direct him to
Even
do
worse.
anything.
So that the impression he's now reinforcing is that the BJP goes on bended knees. It's not even going as an equal partner.
Anyway, I'll keep it in mind, and so far as I'm concerned, I have given my view in public, which ordinarily others would not say. And I have said it.
The sad part is, this difference of opinion.
This is not a difference of opinion.
Oh, to many.
May I tell you that it should not be called a difference of opinion. It should be called as to what should be said, what should not be said. This would be in his mind.
At least you concede that he said the wrong thing.
No, not the wrong thing.
Many would say this is not a difference of opinion, this is a difference of philosophy, this is a difference of outlook, it's much greater.
I do not view it that way.
Well, let me point this out.
I have discussed with him all these issues many times.
Except for the fact that it actually begins to color the way the BJP as a party even approaches issues of foreign policy. In 2005 February, when you were party president and the King of Nepal took over direct control, you issued a public statement calling for the restoration of legitimate democracy, calling for the release of all political leaders. At your National Council 15 days ago, your new president actually called on Nepali politicians to participate in the King's municipal elections, which most people consider a farce. And he didn't say a word about the release of political leaders, even though Mr. Dweba, the former Prime Minister, continues to be detained. Once again, the BJP under you and the BJP under him seems like two different parties.
No, the first statement that was issued immediately after the happenings in Nepal, and the situation today has in a way moved in a direction in which even those who strongly feel that both constitutional monarchy and democracy, multi-party democracy, have to coexist there, have a feeling that maybe what we promote as multi-party democracy may be Maoist controlled, and that certainly creates...
You see, you're explaining away the difference. The truth is, Rajnath Singh was siding with the Hindu monarchy in Nepal. You were siding with Nepal's democratic parties. That's the real difference.
It's not. I would not say that what Rajnath said the other day was different from what was said earlier, except that the situation has changed so as to make every patriot in India feel apprehensive lest a situation develop in Nepal which affects our internal security directly.
Mr. Advani, just look at the situation. Rajnath emphasizes ideology, he emphasizes Hindutva, he emphasizes the abrogation of Article 370, the need for a uniform civil code. You have a platform which is non-ideological, you prefer the word Bharatiyata to Hindutva, you don't speak about the repeal of Article 370, you're quite happy to wait for a social consensus before a uniform civil code comes into being. The two of you are speaking about two different visions.
They are not two different visions. They only stress different aspects of the situation in which can be included in my statements also, or his statements also.
Then let me ask you a blunt question. As far as the BJP is concerned, in February 2006, whose view carries greater importance? Yours as leader of the opposition or Rajnath Singh as party president?
It will be the views of the party as it decides over a period of time.
But who decides the view of the party, you or your successor?
No, all together.
Because there are two different views we're talking about.
There are no different views. Different aspects of the same issue and same problem, which at different points of time, different things.
That's how you're trying to explain it away. But look what people will say. People will say that 7 or 8 months ago, L K Advani went to Pakistan and was pushed out of his job as party president by the RSS. Today, Rajnath Singh has replaced him and is squeezing his political thinking. You're being minimalized in your party one way or another.
I don't think so. In a way, it was what happened in these 6 months has enabled me to give more attention to my parliamentary responsibilities rather than be engrossed in the day-to-day activities.
You say that with a smile on your face and I can see the twinkle in your eyes. Let me quote to you what you said about the Prime Minister earlier. You said he was one of the weakest Prime Ministers, if not the weakest Prime Minister. Today, people will say L K Advani looks like one of the weakest, if not the weakest, leaders of the opposition. His party's pushed him out of his presidency. The successor is squeezing his thoughts and influence.
You've referred to yesterday's press conference with the Prime Minister. And I'm very happy, really, that the Prime Minister, while defending himself that he was not the weakest Prime Minister, he brought in Pakistan. And he brought in my comments on Jinnah to prove that who is saying this? Advani. What happened when he said what he did about Jinnah? He had to quit his presidentship. I would think that there are situations where standing by what you believe in, rather than trying only to stick on to office, is a manifestation of strength, not weakness.
So the fact you didn't change your position is your strength?
I think so.
Even though you had to sacrifice your job as party president?
In fact, I have always felt in my long political career, there was an earlier occasion when I was charged with Hawala, and I not merely resigned from Parliament, but I declared that I will not contest for Parliament again unless I am judicially exonerated from this charge.
I grant you your integrity and I grant you your strength of conviction. You stayed loyal to your principles, but the point I'm making is that
it was in that.
But the point I'm making.
Therefore, let me complete, because Manmohan Singh brought in this.
And this is your response.
Therefore, my statement would be that Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh has been compromising day after day after day only to stick on to office.
But I want to talk about you, not Manmohan Singh. I grant you that you stood by your convictions, but you've still been minimalized by your party. You've lost the job of party president, and now Rajnath Singh is significantly shifting away from what you stood for as party president. Your views are being minimalized by your successor.
I don't think so. I don't agree with it.
I put it to you.
And I would also say that by and large, the party has been pursuing what I have said or stood by for the last so many years.
The question is, will it pursue it hereafter? I put it to you. I began by saying that the two of you are saying different things. You're actually leading in different directions.
I don't think so.
You're in danger of either confusing the BJP or even intellectually tearing it apart.
Not at all.
You're confident of that?
I'm confident of that.
In which case, let's take a break. Let's come back, and I want to put to you, as leader of the opposition, how you respond to some of the critical recent political developments we've all lived through. That's part 2 of this interview. See you after the break. Welcome back to Devil's Advocate and an exclusive interview with the leader of the opposition, L K Advani. Mr. Advani, let's turn to some of the important recent political events. After the Supreme Court made public its judgment explaining why it had struck down the dissolution of the Bihar Assembly, you called publicly for the resignation of the Prime Minister. Why did you not also ask the President to accept responsibility for his share of the blame?
In fact, what the Prime Minister said yesterday at his press conference only strengthens or vindicates our demand that he should resign.
But what about the
President? I'll come to the President in a minute. But because till now there was an attempt to project as if the fall guy in this particular episode was the governor alone. But to me it appears, after yesterday's statement, particularly by the Prime Minister, in which he affirmed that the Council of Ministers' decision was not wrong. On the basis of the information that we had at that point of time, it was a right decision. And the fact that 2 judges of the Supreme Court have given a dissent note, that also he quoted in his favor, in the favor of his government, despite the fact that for the first time perhaps the Supreme Court has found government guilty not merely of acting unconstitutionally, but acting malafide.
So you now have greater reasons for calling for the Prime Minister's resignation. But what about the share of responsibility that falls squarely on the head of the president.
Somehow, in the Bombay judgment, maybe the judges had anticipated a situation of this kind and therefore made a pronouncement which saves the president from any accusation of bad faith.
Let me quote to you what Fali Nariman, perhaps India's greatest living constitutional expert, wrote about the president. He said it was the president's duty to ensure that the advice given to him was not driven by petty party considerations. He could only do this after fully informing himself of the contentions on both sides of the political spectrum. But the president denied himself this opportunity. And then Mr. Nariman adds, in this he erred, he gravely erred. Surely, as leader of the opposition, it is your duty to point out that when someone as high as the president makes a mistake, it is a mistake.
It is a mistake.
You accept that?
I accept that it is a mistake. He could have sent it back. He could have said that I cannot sign it here. I'll come back and sign. But at the same time, on the basis of what the Bombay judgment has said, you should not attribute bad faith to the president, but in case of the Council of Ministers, in case of the governor...
Mr. Advani, the Bombay judgment could never have imagined that a president would sign a proclamation dismissing a government at 2 or 3 in the morning while out of the country without consulting any legal opinion and without asking for time to consider the matter. Surely, you don't want this to become a precedent for the future.
I don't want this to become a precedent for the future, but I did expect this judgment also to say something about the president.
And you think it should have?
It should have.
So it's fallen short. It's fallen short.
It's fallen short. And it has spoken only about the governor and the Council of Ministers.
In which case, as leader of the opposition and someone who wishes to protect the sanctity of the high office as president, not necessarily the incumbent who occupies it, surely it's your duty to point out lapses, just as a way of guaranteeing they don't get repeated.
As I mentioned this to the president also, and I pointed out to him that maybe because of this situation, the Bombay judgment has said this. I quoted that to him also.
Have you told the president that you believe he made a mistake?
I did not say that, not in so many words.
But you're saying...
I focused on the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers.
But today you're saying...
Today I am saying...
that the president made a mistake.
It was a mistake.
And
he could have returned it, or he could have said that I want time to consider it.
Could have or should have?
Should have.
Should have.
Yes.
And you're also saying that the Supreme Court judgment fell short.
It's not for me to comment on the Supreme Court judgment.
But you did a moment ago.
But I went through the whole judgment thoroughly, all the 500 pages, and I found that all the comments were confined to the governor and the Council of Ministers. And when I sought an explanation from a legal luminary, it is he who pointed out to me what has been written by the Supreme Court itself in the Bombay judgment.
Okay, let's move on to a second critical issue that dominates the news at the moment. Virtually as we are speaking, the Iran issue is before the IAEA. If the government of India should choose to side with the P5 and refer Iran to the Security Council, will you as leader of the opposition support the government, or will you be critical of that decision?
In our party, we are still to consider this collectively.
You mean
and it's
the
an important
BJP,
issue.
the opposition, hasn't considered this critical issue up till now?
Not fully. We were waiting for all people to assemble here to collect it before the session. And
forgive me, you're saying something incredible. You're saying that the leading opposition party, right till the 11th hour, has not considered how it's going to vote or what it's going to say about the Iran issue.
I would simply say that on the Iran issue, we should not be pressured into doing anything that seems to affect our independent foreign policy.
What about the fact that India could end up having 2 nuclear countries in its neighborhood, both of whom are Muslim powers, both of whom happen to be neighbors? Wouldn't that worry you?
It is a matter of worry, but as I said, that I propose to discuss this matter thoroughly with my colleagues before saying anything publicly.
What about the July 2005 nuclear deal that Prime Minister Manmohan Singh signed in Washington? The left are deeply critical. Where does the BJP stand on that?
we were not critical of the agreement, but we did say, for the sake of getting nuclear fuel, we should not compromise our independent foreign policy.
Except for the fact that Brajesh Mishra, when he was your national security advisor, sought exactly similar relationships with the Americans, with the British and the Russians, who were reluctant to agree. Today, when the Americans have agreed, why is the BJP not standing by what it used to believe in earlier?
Because subsequently, what the US ambassador has said here, or what has been said even occasionally from spokesmen in Washington, one has to be very careful that we do not in any way compromise our independent foreign policy.
So Mr. Mulford's statements have affected the BJP's thinking?
It has certainly shown what America's thinking is. And therefore it was that my senior leader Vajpayee immediately reacted to it and said it's an outrageous statement.
In 2004 September, you said to me that it was quite likely that if the UPA government completed its full 5-year term, you would not lead the BJP at the next elections. Do you stand by that, or have you changed your mind?
Do you recall what I exactly said?
Quite likely was your phrase. I
said I would be 82 at that time, and I do not know what would be the position, and therefore it may be someone else.
Maybe, or quite
Maybe.
likely that it will be.
I can't say today.
Is it fitting that in a country where 70% of the population is under 30, a man who's 78 today and could be 82 at the time should hope to be Prime Minister?
At least I have been first-time minister in a government whose Prime Minister was 82.
So Morarji Desai's example is a precedent that you might follow?
I don't quote any precedent. I'm simply saying that at that time, I had said that I do not think this government will last up to...
But I'm asking you whether in that eventuality you will be the candidate for the top job. You can't say. In other words, you may well be.
I can't say.
Which means you may well be.
It depends on the party's attitude.
Mr. Advani, a pleasure talking to you on Devil's Advocate.